It's 1995. The world we know has changed.
Put on your Sunday best, kids. We're going to Sears.
But the Bradys never will.
Out of sight.
With Mike.
If your sister would wear her glasses, she just might improve her eyesight.
Carol.
Honey, I think you've stirred that enough.
I'm not stirring. I'm looking for Katie Carryall's underpants.
Greg.
This is a car, Jack.
Of course this is a car. But my name's not Jack. It's Greg.
Bobby and Cindy.
So why don't you hop back on the Swiss Miss package where you belong, huh?
Okay.
Peter.
Lunch looks pretty rank.
What'd you bring? Pork chops and applesauce.
Jan.
Hi, everybody. It's the new Jan Brady.
Marcia.
Here's Brady. Oh, my nose. I'm sure no one will ever notice. There'll never be a teen model.
And Alice. The Brady Bunch movie.
Marcia did it again. Marcia.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Hello, welcome back.
Hi, listeners.
Hi.
We're back again. Everybody out there. My name is Pete.
And I'm Scott. And these are the movies that made us gay. Welcome to the show. It is just us today. We do not have a guest.
Yes, it is just us.
Just family today.
And what a family that we are here to review.
Exactly. Well, we talked about the Brady Bunch movie.
Yay, the Brady Bunch movie.
A movie that Pete and I fucking love.
Oh, my God.
I think that we watch this movie like 4 or 5 times a year, probably.
At least.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Brady Bunch movie, released February 17th, 1995, 25 years ago. Can you believe that?
I cannot believe that this movie is 25 years old. It's a little late on the applause meter for that one. That was for the intro of the movie. But yeah, 25 years.
That's insane. And I didn't realize that until I literally 10 minutes ago got out my calculator and figured out 25 years.
Yeah.
Because 95 is still not a year that I associate being 25 years ago.
I mean, to me, 1995 will always be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think about 10 years ago, around 95, that's it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of always going to be that in my head. Yeah, that was a good time for me. It was my senior year of high school.
I was a kid in 95. Good year to just be a little gay boy.
Yeah.
We got the Brady Bunch movie and Clueless.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. There's some gay shit in this movie.
Yes.
If you guys are not quite sure why we decided to review this,
we'll get into it.
You'll find out. There is some kooky, queer shit in this movie. Not the least of which is Mike Brady.
Oh, yeah.
Being played by a super gay man in real life. But the character on the show, not
Gary Cole.
Not Gary Cole.
Gary Cole, excellent in this movie, though.
Gary Cole is so good.
I like his Mike Brady.
He's so good. He does such a great Mike Brady impression. But yeah, what else you got?
Directed by Betty Thomas, Movies That Made Us Gay All-Star from Troop Beverly Hills. We loves us some Betty Thomas.
Yes, indeed. Betty Thomas is amazing. She played, in Troop Beverly Hills, she played the evil troop leader from Mar Vista, Velda Plender. In Troop Beverly Hills, and she was the leader of the Red Feathers, the evil Red Feathers, who were out to get one Miss Phyllis Neffler, played by Shelley Long.
Also, what's the Chicago comedy?
Oh, they're both in the Second City.
They're both in the Second City.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Both Second City alums.
Velda Plender and Phyllis Neffler, 2 amazing movie names, if I've ever heard them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now Betty Thomas is directing this movie. She is one of, in the 90s, handful of female directors that you can count on one hand. You can count on probably 2 or 3 fingers.
It was Betty Thomas, Penny Marshall.
Yeah.
Mimi Leader.
Yeah.
Who did Deep Impact in the Peacemaker.
Yeah.
And Anne Fletcher. Trying to think of other.
Who directed Clueless?
Oh, Amy Heckerling.
Amy Heckerling. And Penelope Spheris, who directed Wayne's World.
Which I think that kind of this and Wayne's World are kind of like They're
Kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits.
Yes, indeed.
Cousins.
Yes, indeed.
Both produced by Paramount.
Yes, indeed.
So let's set the scene. In the 90s, there was a big nostalgia craze in movies where you started to see a lot of classic TV shows adapted to movies.
Yes, indeed.
There
Sounds
was
familiar.
Dennis the Menace, the Beverly Hillbillies,
There's a Leave It to Beaver movie.
the Leave It to Beaver movie.
Geez.
Yep. But all kind of very family movies.
Yes.
And what I think is super cool about the Brady Bunch movie is that it takes a very, some might call it square property.
Yes.
And they kind of give it this curious edge to it.
Yes.
Like it's not a movie for children.
No.
It's a movie made for people that remember growing up on the Brady Bunch and for kind of high schoolers in 1995, which I think is pretty cool.
Yes. And what works about the Brady Bunch as a property to kind of make subversive is that the time frame in which it took place, late 60s, early 70s, was very psychedelic. All the clothes were kind of kooky. The hairstyles were kind of nutty. And this square family, their clothes were so weird and out there. And this house was weird and out there. And to people on the outside looking in, and there's a lot of jokes about this in the movie, it just seems like these people are on another level. Like they're all stoned, you know. So it's like looking at this family like they're a bunch of like kooky potheads, but they're not. They're just really square. I often make the analogy of Full House is kind of like the Brady Bunch of the 90s.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
And the way that
Yes.
we as kids watched Full House, and we knew that this was not real.
And you knew that it was heightened, that no houses look like this.
Yeah. We knew as kids that
Yes.
we don't interact with our parents this way. Parents don't interact with kids this way.
Your best friend usually just doesn't barge in
Yeah.
every 10 minutes.
And when I talk to my mom, who is the same age as Marcia Brady, or Greg Brady, I think. Your mom is the same age as Marcia Brady.
Yes, I think so.
When we talk to them and their memories of watching this show, my mom always says, I knew it was weird. And
Yeah.
nobody said groovy. And people didn't dress like that.
I think that my mom and her siblings have kind of said similar things to me.
You know, and they knew it, but they watched it, you know, and they loved Marcia and they loved Greg. And, you know, it was just something that kids really took to. And in reruns in all through the 80s, I remember watching reruns of this all through my youth before the movie.
And then well into the 90s.
Yeah,
And also
for sure.
even before the movie came out, I mean, the Brady Bunch, like Saved by the Bell, was just a staple of basic cable. That
Yes.
if you were at home in the middle of the day, say 10 or 11 a.m., it would usually be on.
Yeah, and it's part of that Sherwood Schwartz package. It, you know, came with Gilligan's Island, usually right after it
and
or right
even
before it.
even Sherwood Schwartz, even at the time, kind of in the television industry, was kind of known as the lowest common denominator for for television production. It was this very cheesy, family friendly.
Yeah.
But that's what worked about it, though.
Yeah. And if you watch the Brady Bunch now, which we do on the reg because we have the DVD set of the entire series. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Uncle Corey.
Yep.
For buying that for us.
I actually think that was my mom.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
It's super charming. It's just, it transports you to a different time. If you're from LA or if you live in LA now, it's very interesting to watch because a lot of times it is very set bound. You know, the whole thing about this show is that the house is so artificial and there's AstroTurf in the backyard.
And
all
have you
of
ever
that.
noticed whenever they would do outdoor scenes, it's usually on the Paramount lot?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. So there are some outdoor scenes and there are some really interesting shots of LA when they do get out and go places. And so it's very fun in that aspect to to look at LA of the very early 70s and it just looks a certain way that's just very nostalgic. And if you're into that like groovy, you know, like late 60s, early 70s thing, if you like, you know, that kind of, if you're into like Davy Jones and Donovan and like all this kind of really cool music, it's I don't know, it speaks to me. And if you're just into like, if you liked like Rodney on the Rock, like Rodney Bingenheimer was in love with Marcia Brady. She's Godhead. that was like Rodney's like Marcia Brady and Annette Funicello. And if you know what that means to get why that they are kind of like subversive and punk and like cool,
kind of these weird rockabilly icons.
Yeah.
And also, there's something about the Brady Bunch, too, when you watch it now. It's like popping an Ambien. I think that our friend Chris and former guest of Masters of the Universe said that on your old podcast, that it's just like taking an Ambien. Like, there's just something so soothing and comforting about it.
Yes. It's just part of, like, TV history, and it's one of those things that you can just put on, and you know it's always going to be the same.
And they feel like all of the Bradys are your siblings that you never had, too.
Yes.
They're just very familiar to you.
Yeah. And, if you watch it too much, it does get crazy. Some episodes are really stupid.
The last season is bananas, too.
Yeah, that is the truth. It did go off the rails. But this movie, what this movie does and why this movie is successful is because it's a parody, like, but in the best way.
Yes, it's a very loving parody.
They reproduced that house, like, really extremely well. These actors that are involved, not only do they look the part, they're all doing a fine job of doing impressions of these characters, but also understanding the humor behind it and just getting that it's this crazy, weird 60s family dropped into 1995. And the way it works, this movie is such a time capsule of two eras now.
The 70s and the 90s. It works almost even better as a 90s movie.
Well, the other thing, too, that what I thought you were going to say at the beginning is that in the 90s, much like now how kids these days are dressing 90s.
Yes.
When I was in high school in the 90s, we were raiding thrift shops to dress like the Brady Bunch.
As were my siblings in the 90s.
Yeah, I was going to stores looking for, short sleeve pocket tees with like stripes and like multicolored stripe patterns and, ringer tees and corduroy pants and corduroy bell bottoms for one thing. And that was a big aesthetic at that point, just going back to this 70s look, which my thing about kids dressing 90s now, I'm like, those clothes were around in the 90s, but you're wearing them wrong. Like, no cool person dressed how these kids are dressing
and
now.
No cool person, when you go into, like, an urban now, wears that many labels.
No.
That many labels?
No.
From the 90s?
So they're getting pieces right, but they're not putting it together the way we did. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe they're putting it together in a new way, but using the elements. But that's what we did in the 90s, and so that's why this movie also was so, like, perfectly timed. It was because I was out there, scouring the Children's Hospital of Orange County thrift store looking for T-shirts and pants and going to, I found my share of really cool Greg Brady-esque T-shirts at Miller's Outpost, I'll have you know.
I remember a big one when we would go to the bigger towns in Montana was Buffalo Exchange. There was a Buffalo
Exchange
in Bozeman.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
And
I thought it was like a little one-off shop in LA.
Cool thrift stores around Billings.
I just assumed it was like a one-off little consignment store, like on.
There was a Buffalo Exchange.
Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the timing was right for, kids in the 90s to see these Brady kids and be like, okay, these are like style icons. And so the story is just they're the Bradys and they live in this house.
And kind of the main joke of the movie is that kind of time has marched on for the Brady neighborhood while the family still exists in their bubble.
And it's marching across your face. Yes, they live in their bubble in their Brady house in Studio City.
And what's super clever is that when you go in the Brady house, the film stock changes. That it looks more like television. And then when they're outside, it's shot more like a movie.
That's true. Yeah, I did notice that. Even I just assumed it was because they went from studio to location.
No, I think the film stock is a little different,
and the lighting is different, but it is probably the film grain, and that's why I noticed it more. So little tricks like that. This movie's filled with really good comedians. The actress who plays Alice, Henriette Martell, is a really funny stand-up comedian. Friends with Rosie O'Donnell. Ro used to mention Henriette on her show all the time.
Do you think that Ellen
pretty
DeGeneres read for this movie?
Well, Ellen DeGeneres looks exactly like Alice.
Mm-hmm.
So I
bet
feel
she did.
like they probably approached her. She looks like Alice now. Maybe at the time she was too young. 25 years ago, she may have read a little too young for Alice. They wanted somebody a little bit more matronly. So they went with Henriette. But... yeah, I think so. But she does look exactly like her. Look it up. We'll do it side by side. Gary Cole, as you mentioned, plays Mike Brady, and he does a really, really, really good spot-on impression of Mike Brady.
Mm-hmm.
Shelley Long.
I think Shelley Long's performance is interesting because she's not doing a direct imitation of Florence Henderson.
No, I don't think
she's
so.
She's doing her own take on Carol.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty awesome. That she's just not kind of doing a carbon copy of this performance. She's making Carol her own.
Yeah. Well, she is wearing the crazy Carol mullet wig and signature pantsuits. But, I agree. It's not exactly like you don't just close your eyes and you're like, oh, that's Florence Henderson. Florence Henderson, in this movie at the end, does a cameo and looks amazing.
Looks like $1 million.
She's probably 65, maybe. Mm-hmm. You know,
so I was reading about the Florence Henderson cameo.
Sure.
That there was a cut of this movie that didn't have her, and when they test screened it, audiences were just like, "Well, where's the real Carol Brady?"
Yeah,
because they were expecting to see her.
Yeah.
So then they got her back in, and they picked up that last shot.
It's a good scene. She plays the grandma. It works. It makes sense. She plays Carol's mom. She's dressed super modern 90s, you know. So it's a funny little gag in that the real Carol Brady is now like the modern woman.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of has like a snap out of it moment with Jan. If you're just kind of familiar with the Brady Bunch in passing, this movie has every hallmark. I remember some friends of mine in school were just not having it because they were like, well, it's just lines from the show.
So I was doing a count of the number of episodes and callbacks that they do to the series. Let me get a count. Hold on.
I mean, every scene is just full of bits.
I'm getting at least 9 stories from episodes. There's probably like 12
and you probably
or
stopped
13.
in like the first 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think there's way more than that.
So we're getting famous and memorable storylines like Marcia getting hit in the face with a football, no playing ball in the house, safety patrol, Davy Jones, the new Jan Brady. Will she please stand up? Marcia asking 2 guys out at the same time. Johnny Bravo, the kitty Carol is missing, and square dancing in the living room is taken from an episode as well.
Yes. As are character names like Noreen, Doug Simpson. And I feel just the name Marcia always had friends with crazy names like
these
Noreen.
Crazy super 60s and 70s names.
Yeah, you never meet a Noreen anymore, and if you do, they're all of a certain age. Who's going to name their baby Noreen?
Baby Noreen.
Baby Noreen, that's weird. I don't see it. What do you call her?
Also, we should mention that Noreen played by Alana Ubach. We
Ubach.
love Alana Ubach in this movie.
I love Alana Ubach. If you're not familiar with Alana, you will definitely be familiar with her work in Legally Blonde.
Mm-hmm. She plays one of Elle's friends.
She plays one of Elle's friends. You know her when you see her.
Just one of those actresses that you've seen her in something.
Yes.
Even if you don't know her name.
Yes. She does a voice in Pixar's Coco. She is so funny as Noreen, and the amazing thing about the Noreen character is that she's Marcia's best friend. She's in love with Marcia, and Marcia is completely 100% oblivious to the fact that Noreen is just fucking in love with her.
Just
and
how she looks at Marcia.
It's
like Marcia is just so in love with her.
Funny. She plays. Oh my god, she plays it so extremely well. I have a clip of Noreen. We'll play that in a bit when we get to it. But yeah, I specifically remember people being upset that they're just like, it's just bits from the movie. But the way that they weave it into the story, I feel like it works. I feel like it's funny. You have to have these little bits. They do mention, that they don't have their saving. They spent all their savings on their trips to the Grand Canyon and Hawaii. Mm-hmm. They just that's a little throwaway line. When in the sequel, we go back to Hawaii, but they didn't know about the sequel yet, so we'll let that one slide. But yeah, just little bits of minutia from the show, if you're familiar with it, just is peppered throughout everything. And one of the bigger character notes is that Jan, being the middle child, just Jan. There's a lot of Jan memes going around because of Jan Sport from Drag Race Season 11. But Jan, being the middle child, being overshadowed. I don't want to have 5 brothers and sisters anymore. She had middle child syndrome. She wanted to run away. She wanted to be an only child. She was always being overshadowed by Marcia, and that's a big character beat in this movie between those two characters. Marcia is an it girl. Everybody loves her. She can do no wrong. And Jan, being the middle child, she is overshadowed by her. But, it's kind of where we get a lot of middle child syndrome, awareness.
Yeah.
from. And let me tell you this. If you watch the episode of the Brady Bunch,
Will the real Jan Brady please stand up?
When Jan utters the immortal line, Marcia, 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 Eve Plum is so good in that scene.
You feel so bad for her.
You feel so bad for her. She's got to be 11.
And that line, it's one
12.
of those things that I think people remember her saying it every single episode, but I think she only says it once.
But she says it so well. She delivers that line with just pain in her heart. She almost stumbles over it when she delivers it in the episode.
Yeah.
And she's a little girl. Like I said, she's about 11 years old, and she delivers it so well, and your heart breaks for her. Now, the actress who plays Jan Brady in this movie,
Jennifer Elise Cox,
is not 11 years old.
No, I take it that this is sort of like the later Brady seasons.
Cindy and Bobby are played by children.
Yeah.
Peter Brady, I think, is actually like a young teenage boy, the actor. Everybody else are full-grown.
They're fully
adults.
They're fully in their late 20s.
Adults in their 20s. Christine Taylor, former Mrs. Ben Stiller, plays Marcia Brady.
Did they get divorced?
I believe so.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that.
Or maybe they're separated. Maybe they got back together, but I think they got separated for a while ago. We'll look that up. Christine Taylor, as Marcia Brady, is like mirror image of Marcia, but heightened. Like she's almost like a county fair or like a theme park version of Marcia.
She does the most kind of impression of whoever they're playing.
Yes, she's doing a distinct impression of Maureen McCormick.
Mm-hmm. I think especially Maureen McCormick from the later seasons, too.
Yes.
Because they don't quite make Marcia into this blonde bombshell on the Brady Bunch until probably the last 2 seasons.
Right. Because Marcia does very, very much look a lot younger in the early seasons.
Also, I'll just say, Jan in the later seasons, I think is stunning.
Oh, yeah. She's
maybe a little more beautiful than Marcia.
Yeah, Eve Plum is a very beautiful girl, and as they age in the series, she really comes into her own. And the whole middle child thing, you're just like, what? We also have to mention that Jennifer Elise Cox is doing an impression of Melanie Hutzel from Saturday Night Live
on the Weekend Updates,
doing an impression of Jan Brady.
Breast implants.
Hi, I'm Jan Brady. You know, for years, women have been spending a ton of money on silicone breast implants and various other cosmetic surgeries. Well, when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be more like my older sister, Marcia. All I heard all day long was how great Marcia was at this, and how great Marcia was at that. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia!
Melanie Hutzel came from the Groundlings in L.A., and she famously did the real-life Brady Bunch on stage.
Which is kind of what inspired this adaptation, too.
Yes. And she played Jan Brady with Andy Richter as Mike Brady and Jane Lynch as Carol.
I bet Jane Lynch does a really good Carol.
Yeah. And again, my older sister, my inspiration, when she was in college, went to the real life Brady Bunch with her friends, and that was the thing. It was reality bites. It was, we're going to sit around and talk about old shows from the 70s.
I mean, it's pretty much
we live in LA.
What the Janine Garofalo character is in Reality Bites is that she's obsessed with all this shit.
Yeah, we're gonna go to this cool underground theater in LA to watch this show with these weird comedians that were not famous and will be famous in 15 years. And I was just like, that sounds so cool. And there was no YouTube. I couldn't look up what the hell the real life Brady Bunch was. I just had my sister to tell me what it was.
I think the full performance of that is on YouTube right now.
It's really shitty.
If you wanted to look it up.
And yeah, Melanie Hutzel got hired on Saturday Night Live a year or two later, and would do Jan Brady on Weekend Update. I would do that impression at school to my friends, and they would laugh and laugh. And that's the thing, I'm a teenage boy. I'm doing impressions of Jan Brady.
Oh, it was Melanie Hutzel doing Jan Brady on the Weekend Update desk.
Yeah,
yeah,
and getting my friends to laugh. By the way, I'll have you know, but it's I don't think it gets any more queer than that. But so Jennifer Elise Cox is definitely doing this impression, and we'll definitely post some of that.
One time, I saw my brother Greg in the schoolyard with some other guys, and he was smoking.
All right, Jan, easy there now.
No, he was smoking. Hey, maybe I saved Greg's life. Did you ever think about that, Kevin? Huh?
Okay, it's all right. Okay.
So I think that we should start kind of how this movie is introduced.
Okay.
And this...
I mentioned earlier that this movie is a time capsule of two eras. It's a time capsule of the 70s inside the Brady house. But when you leave the Brady house, this movie is a 90s time capsule in a way that's crazy. Because
it's very specific.
I feel like it's so over the top 90s, it's almost as if you were to make a 90s movie now. How over the top crazy they would go with, there's the opening montage over the credits is every 90s LA stereotype wrapped up into 2 minutes over this fake grunge song. We'll play a little bit of the song. What is this, first of all? It's there's a little bit of living color in there. I'm hearing hints of Rage Against the Machine.
Little Alice in Chains.
The vocal is very Alice in Chains when it comes in, but it's just a fake grunge song. You immediately get traffic. You get smog. You get people on car phones.
People reading philosophy. Oh, that sound, that
little hook right there.
That little hook right there brings me back. Reading philosophy while stuck in traffic. Too.
That was in LA Story. That's an old gag.
There's that shot of this well-known car wash off Sunset Boulevard that we just passed the other day, and it looked all sad now.
Yeah. There's a shot of Cafe 101. It says last cappuccino before the 101.
What do the signs on the freeway say? They say gang shooting or something?
Yeah. Those freeway signs made of lights. That freeway shooting or something like that.
But this opening just really sets the tone of the culture clash between the Brady world and the world that they live in.
Yes.
Because this is sort of like...
They're coming from the idyllic blue sky, which it wasn't a blue sky in 1971.
It looks super gross and LA 70s smog.
Yeah. That's where we get this. That's where the smog came from, was from the damn 70s. My mom always says that she never saw blue skies as a kid because it was brown in L.A. But, on the Brady Bunch, the sky was always blue. And so, you have to juxtapose crazy, moody L.A. with, like, people at the bus stop are on car phones. That is crazy talk.
Yeah.
In 1995,
It's just
that was crazy
kind
talk.
of like the place of cynicism coming out of the Reagan 80s of America.
Yeah.
This is like Generation Xers rejecting their baby boomer parents' ideals.
Yeah.
And what can a family like the Bradys teach all of these people?
Just, when you're feeling down, just hop in a potato sack.
Yeah.
And square dance with your siblings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's morning at the Brady house, and it's just a typical day when we got to go to school, and
it opens like an episode would open.
It does. It opens exactly like an episode. The music cues are exactly the music cues from the show. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that I thought that it was a like 1-to-1 perfect replica of the house set.
Not quite.
But when we watched that HGTV show, they pointed out the differences.
And I love that Eve Plum was super quick to correct that the movie house isn't exactly like it was in real life.
Because Eve.
And the bedroom is a little different.
Yeah, the girl's bedroom is a little different.
The HGTV show was charming. It was cool to see them try to match it how it was on the show.
Yeah, I mean, what they couldn't match in dimension, because you couldn't fit all that into a house. It would have to be like the size of like Spelling Manor.
They tried, though.
To like fit it all in there. They matched in the textures and the color scheme and the exact patterns of everything, which is really cool. But yeah, we start off in the girls' bedroom, and it's like, granted, 6 kids, it's a lot of kids. But cramming 6 kids into 2 bedrooms.
Well, Marcia does end up moving upstairs. Oh, no. I think that she shares the upstairs attic with Greg, and then just Greg ends up in the attic.
Yeah, Greg gets
That's how it goes.
Because he's a boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But she believes in women's lib, this new thing called women's lib, so she tries to get up there. But it starts off in the girls' room, and there's some classic Marcia and Jan.
Jan, did you move my trophies?
Yes. I couldn't look in the mirror without seeing the awards of the great Marcia Brady.
I believe these are my white knee socks.
Not everything in this room is yours.
See, Jan, I told you they were mine. Now put them back, and don't forget to close the drawer when you're done.
She has every right to be mad. They are her socks. But why does Marcia get all the socks? Why does Marcia get all the trophies? Why does Marcia get all the good drawers? Yeah! Why does Marcia get everything? Marcia, Marcia, Marcia! It's closed!
First utterance of Marcia in the movie.
First time that they bring up the voices.
Inner voices. That's good. We haven't even talked about the cameo appearance by RuPaul as guidance counselor Mrs. Cummings. Really great. Really.
Well,
great
when they
cameo.
go to school, this is just like the trashiest LA Valley school that you can think of.
Yeah,
that the Bradys are going to.
I think they very purposely tried to make the school look a little dangerous.
It was shot at Taft High School in Woodland Hills.
Yes, indeed, which I'm sure is a fine high school. But, they just went out of their way to make it seem a little sketchy for these kids. There's like grunge kids everywhere because it's the 90s, rock and roll kids with long hair. Jack Noseworthy, who we love from Cecil B. Demented, is in this. He plays one of the neighbor kids who's just
Who is he in Cecil B. Demented?
I believe he's the hairdresser who is fucking Michael not Michael Fassbender. He's fucking
Michael Shannon.
Michael Shannon, and he wants to be gay so he could be with Michael Shannon, but he's not. He's straight, and he hates himself for it, and he's filled with self-hatred. So he's a self-hating heterosexual,
and
he's a hairdresser.
Yeah, and he's their next door neighbor.
Yes,
in the movie.
Yes, and they hate the Bradys.
Mm-hmm.
At the school is where we get introduced to some plots with the kids. This is where we do meet Noreen, Marcia's best friend, and hopeful love interest, but not quite.
And we get introduced to the hunk Doug Simpson,
big man on campus.
Big man on campus.
That is such a like dated like 50s, 60s like reference. The big man on campus.
But I like that these guys are just as they would be fascinated with Marcia.
Yes,
because she's this beautiful blonde that just sort of lives in her own world.
God, she drives me crazy. I gotta have that. I live next door to her, and she's harder to get into than a Pearl Jam concert.
Great line.
Yeah. Even at the time, that line was just like, ugh, grown. That was a groaner, even in the 90s. But, I mean, she is harder to get into than a Pearl Jam concert. But this is where we meet Noreen, the wonderful Noreen.
Hi, Marcia. Hi. Oh, guess what? My mom said I can sleep over. Oh, really? It's great, Noreen. Guess what else? Doug just said hi to me. He is so dreamy, isn't he? Yeah, I guess. If you like that sort of thing. So, can I carry your books to class? Sure, Noreen. After all, you are my best friend. Oh, here comes Doug. Go away. Sure. No, stay. Okay. No, leave. Fine. No, stay and pretend I just said something really funny. What? Oh.
Marcia.
Yeah, she's just super oblivious, and you are my best friend. I don't know. I just think it's charming. It's
I love
cute.
that how Marcia just found herself with this like closeted lesbian.
Yeah, Noreen's
It's a funny
wardrobe
joke.
is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
She wears like bandanas and like oversized baggy t-shirts and like vests. It's very like 90s like teen lesbian character. Very cute. Yeah, love it.
Lesbian icon Noreen.
Indeed, there's a very cute scene where Noreen's sleeping over and they're sharing Marcia's twin bed.
That shot of them in bed.
I'm sorry, Marcia. I thought that was my leg.
That was my leg.
Yeah, and Alana's just like fast talking, kind of like delivery, just that really funny like fast talking. I thought that was my leg. It's really good. Let's see. Oh, Mrs. Cummings. We've got. I mean, there's a like once they get to the school, it's like bam, bam, bam. There's a lot of like
there's a
great
lot
stuff
coming out at you.
Yeah. This is where Jan has to wear glasses. And I mean, Jan doesn't want to wear the glasses because they make her look positively goofy.
Mm-hmm.
Positively goofy. And Eve Plum's delivery of positively goofy is amazing. It's very like, it's almost like a little Holly Golightly. Like the way Eve Plum says
I never thought about that. Yeah, totally.
She's just like, glasses would make me look positively goofy. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? Positively, who the fuck came up with that line?
But that's that sort of Brady dialogue.
Yeah,
that nobody really talks like it, but
goofy.
it exists in the world of the Bradys.
Yeah, just like the boys calling each other like turkey and like all that kind of thing. So Jan has these and I have to say the glasses that Jan wears, they kind of match them in the movie. On the show, they're super nerdy.
Yeah.
Like, they're like these oval, and
super nerd alert.
Yeah. But I mean, again, it was in like 1972, so like, who knows? Maybe that was a little bit more on trend, but like, I can't deal with them. But, so she, Jan in the movie leaves the house in her glasses, but then puts them away, and her like big, like crocheted, like duster vest that she's wearing
runs into the trash can.
Yeah, but it's very cool because she's wearing like this loose crochet like duster vest that's like past her knees and has like tassels and it's white and it has this like loose crochet. So what she does is she takes the glasses off and gets like one arm of the glasses and like pokes it through one of the little holes in her like vest. Mm-hmm. It's a very interesting little note of how she does that, of like what she's wearing. Like, I don't have a pocket, but I'm gonna like poke it through the hole of
put it in my vest.
This vest that's like built into the like crochet loops. So yeah, so there's like little funny character or little funny like physical comedy beats of her like not being able to see, and she runs into like the walls and all that. So she goes to the guidance counselor, Mrs. Cummings, and again, it's this 90s school with a bunch of like roughneck, street tough kids. And so Mrs. Cummings, the guidance counselor, is expecting, the worst out of Jan. And what do we get?
So, Jan, what can I help you with? Teen pregnancy, bulimia, suicidal tendencies?
No, it's my stupid glasses.
Oh.
I know I should wear them.
Oh.
I look at myself in the mirror every morning, and I say to myself, Jan, put on your glasses. But then I say, you look like a super creep. Take them off. It's like my head tells me to do different things, and I get very confused.
Inner voices? Good. That's good. Let's explore that.
What does she mean, inner voices? I don't think that's any of her business.
But it's her job to ask questions.
You are so dumb.
I don't have inner voices.
Now, Jan, paranoid schizophrenia is very common amongst children of blended families. You are the middle child, aren't you?
Middle child? Don't you mean Marcia Brady's little sister?
Wait a minute. She's just trying to help.
Help? Wake up. She's just looking for an excuse to bring up Marcia. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia.
Yes, I'm in the middle.
Well, it sounds like you have a serious case of middle child syndrome. But you needn't worry. Here's a copy of my book and my tapes.
Available on iTunes.
In the meantime, do something to make yourself stand out. Give you your own look, apart from your siblings.
A new look. That's it. Gee, thanks, Mrs. Cummings.
Jan, come back when you're pregnant. And girl,
Jan,
you better work.
And that was the last time RuPaul told anyone named Jan that she better work.
Aww. Poor Jan.
Poor Jan.
But you have to hand it to Rue. I mean, like 25 years ago, those like Ruisms, she had them in this movie.
Oh, Rue had those signature phrases.
She had that character like locked down.
She had those phrases on the Arsenio Hall show, like in 1991.
I was trying to think, was this the first time I ever saw RuPaul as a kid? But I think that she was just a staple of MTV too.
She was always
that you
around.
Would just always see her.
She's
places.
always been around. You had to have seen the CoverGirl video.
Of course, yeah.
Because even by the time this movie was out, that song was
the CoverGirl video, and she would sometimes be on like House of Style.
Yeah,
that you're just familiar with her.
B-52's videos.
Mm-hmm.
I love Mrs. Cummings has a giant like black afro, but it's not quite an afro, but it's like natural hair.
It's like daytime afro.
It's natural hair and it's black, and Rue doesn't wear black hair, so it's like very.
It's a little different.
It's a little different for her. It's a character. She's not playing Rue. She's playing a character,
and she is playing a woman.
And she's playing a woman.
A woman.
Yeah.
This is the school guidance counselor.
Yeah, and you have to wonder if that part was like we have her in mind.
Yeah, it would be.
Is it gonna be a stunt character? Is it gonna be RuPaul or Patty Hearst? Or, you know what I mean? Like somebody that's going to be that kind of jarring John Waters-esque kind of like, oh, that's funny. Because it's the Brady Bunch and it's a throwback, so you want to have familiar faces. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's very clever casting. I would imagine that there's a story of just Mrs. Cummings and the creation of this character.
Yes. And Mrs. Cummings comes back in the sequel, Very Brady sequel, with
they
her
meet
daughters.
Her at the pool.
Yeah. Her daughters Moesha and Jan, Isha. We don't know Jan's name.
I love that. Moesha has these beautiful braids too.
Oh yes, I told you not to fight with your sister.
But this was fully like the workroom pep talk from Drag Race,
talking about your inner demons.
Yep,
your inner saboteur. That's very. Don't let that inner saboteur. Rue is all about the inner saboteur. Because why? The calls are coming
from inside
the house. I think she would tell Jan that today. You know where that's from. The calls are coming from inside the house. Scott, what is your favorite movie?
I mean, it's from When a Stranger Calls.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Don't forget, this is a podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We got to let the children know.
I just assume that everyone knows about When a Stranger Calls.
Oh, no.
And When a Stranger Calls Back.
Oh. The Superior movie?
The Superior movie. Which we still need to finish. I still need to have you finish that movie.
Mm-hmm. I thought we did finish it.
No. The ending of that movie is scary, too.
Well, there you go. So that's Ruse. That's her big scene. But, she gets a...
It's all we need.
She comes back in the sequel.
Yep.
It's all we need. It's funny. She gets her cue. She gets her song, and Jan comes up with a new look, the new Jan Brady, which is hilarious. We talked a little bit about the neighbors, the Dittmeyers,
played by just got off of Designing Women, Jean Smart.
Yeah.
So I was mentioning this.
Jean Smart plays Mrs. Dittmeyer, and Mr. Dittmeyer is played by Michael McKean. Michael McKean, I feel like in the 90s really made a niche for himself in these
he would play this type a lot.
Kind of SNL adjacent movies.
Mm-hmm.
Is
he in Tommy Boy?
Oh God, if he's not, he should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. He actually was on Saturday Night Live for a while.
Who is he on Clue?
He's Mr. Green.
Mr. Green.
He's a homosexual.
I'm going home to have sex with my wife.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, his character was playing a homosexual because he was undercover.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Clue. We got to watch Clue. It's a great movie.
Mm-hmm. We'll do Clue eventually.
Oh, perfect.
But this would have been Jean Smart right when she finished Designing Women. And so I was mentioning as we were watching it, do you feel like Jean Smart is curiously underused in movies? Do you think that Allison Janney has kind of taken all the roles from Jean Smart?
I think Jean Smart is underused, but I would say she is appreciated for her work. I think when you mention Jean Smart to people who enjoy movies, the talking pictures, and if you mention Jean
people
Smart,
love Jean Smart.
People like her work. People know her and just feel like, yeah, she's great. She's so good in everything. Kind of a thing. She was just in the Watchmen TV series for HBO.
Sure.
So she was just in that. Although that's not getting another season.
Well, it was designed for a one season
Damon Lindelof designed it for one season because he's just too cool for But yeah, she's in that. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like she should be more well known. She should be bigger. She should be in more things. But it is what it is. She's really funny, and then she's playing against type for the time
because she would have just been coming off as Charlene.
She just came off of Charlene, and Charlene just was a very naive kind of. She was definitely the Rose Nyland of Designing Women. She was obsessed with pop culture and TV shows and all that stuff and romantic. And Mrs. Dittmeyer in the Brady Bunch movie is a drunk,
oversexed, drunk housewife that wants to fuck Mike Brady and his sons.
Yes, indeed. All the Brady boys. If she will take them. Well, maybe not Bobby. Mm-hmm. Bobby's an actual child, but
give him a few years.
Yeah, exactly. And give the actor who plays Bobby in this a couple of years, and
he turned fine.
Oh my goodness gracious!
He's one of those actors too that's been on the same show for 10 years.
Oh, he's on one of those CBS shows that doesn't really exist. On a recent episode of Will and Grace, which I am still watching, Jack made a very good analogy to the existence of God to NCIS. Have you ever seen an episode of NCIS?
Nope.
Has anybody seen an episode of NCIS?
Oh, I'm sure, but probably not.
But you believe that it exists, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go.
Jesse Lee Soffer.
Jesse Lee Soffer. What show has he been on for 8 years?
Chicago PD.
Chicago PD. How about that?
I think that he's done all Chicago PD, Chicago Med, and Chicago Fire.
For fuck's sake.
For fuck's sake.
Playing the same character. Probably.
Also,
because it's a universe. A Chicago universe.
And he also did
the Chicagoverse.
Yeah, and then he also did a big stint on As the World Turns.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, he's fine. Let's go to his Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to his Instagram and check out what he's
That's super
up to.
cute.
Yeah, indeed. The actor who played Peter Brady kind of dropped off the map. And the actor who played Greg...
He has a big voiceover career.
Christopher Daniel Barnes. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
He does a lot of Spider-Man stuff.
He was my homeboy in the 80s because he was on a lot of sitcoms just trying to, like, break through.
Was he on Full House, or am I confusing him with someone else?
Well, you're confusing him with Steve, who's the voice of Aladdin.
Yes.
Christopher Daniel Barnes is famously the voice.
This is the voice of Prince Eric.
Prince Eric, indeed. Yes.
I like how Christopher Daniel Barnes plays Greg Brady because he's a little goofier. It's just he's easier to laugh at, and I think
because they tried to make Greg on the show cool,
and he treats himself very seriously on the show.
Yeah,
I mean he's like your older brother that probably thinks he's way cooler than he actually is. That's kind of the character of Greg.
Yeah, but in the movie, Greg is like clearly just a goofball.
He's always trying to charm groovy chicks and write them songs on his guitar that he really cannot play.
Yeah. Yeah, when he does play his guitar in this movie, it is like out of tune. It's completely jacked
It would be like
up.
me playing a guitar.
Yeah. Jesse Lee Sofer's Instagram is cool, but it's all stuff from the set. The thing is, he's on these like he's deep in the Chicago verse, so I don't think he's gonna have like shirtless pics of his like cum gutters.
He's not going to be like his shirtless pic of him like walking his French bulldog on Runyon or something.
Yeah. Or just like very loose fitting like gray sweatpants or anything. It's like he is deep in the Chicago verse, and his Insta is also just as deep. It's just a lot of him on set pics. Not that I'm mad about it because it's a lot of selfies. So I'll take it. Did he get shot in the face or something? Wow, this is like some special effects grossness. Go follow Jesse Lee Sofer on Instagram. And look up Christopher Daniel Barnes' IMDb because he has done a lot of Spider-Man voiceover. He's also done a lot of Disney work.
Yeah.
How about that?
They need to get his publicist to change this IMDb photo, though. It's bad.
Oh, it's like from the 80s.
It's from like an 80s TV show.
It is. I think it's from Day by Day. I remember that show. Day by Day. The whole plot of this movie is weird because the idea is that developers have come to their like cul-de-sac or whatever, and they're buying up all the houses.
That seems super 90s.
To like develop, I don't know.
They're going to build like a
strip mall or something
on their neighborhood.
Yeah, what's from the 90s that isn't here anymore that they would be building at the time? Like a Builder's Emporium or a Montgomery Ward or something. Something that'll never close down. They're going to build a giant like 8-story Borders books.
Yeah.
And the Bradys don't want to sell, but also they owe the IRS $20,000.
They haven't been paying their taxes.
Why does Mike Brady owe the IRS $20,000?
The Bradys strike me as upstanding citizens that probably pay their taxes.
This doesn't hold water.
Maybe that's the joke, though.
That they just don't know that they actually owe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's doing like he's filling out his 1040 like by hand with like a pencil at the post office. You can still do that. I mean, it's totally legal. There's a paper 1040 that you can just take your W-2 and plug in all the numbers and do the math. It's possible. So he's probably doing that and just like getting the math wrong and not sending their checks. And so he owes all this money to the IRS and back taxes. And that's the amount of money that they need to buy their house back from the bank so that they don't have to sell to the developers to make a giant indoor mall.
And, of course, you get the classic Brady. All the Brady's kids have to band together and try to raise the money. So they all have to go out and find ways to make an income. And they would do that a lot on the show, I feel like you'd always see their jar with money in it that they were raising for like their parents' anniversary or something.
Yeah.
But they do that in this movie.
Yeah. They had to get like a anniversary present. They broke something that they have to replace clandestinely, random things like that. But they do this in this movie, and they have to raise $20,000. We didn't play Mrs. Dittmeyer's like sexy.
Oh, play that
sexy clip. Yeah. The thing is, when you watch the Brady Bunch, Greg Brady is one of those guys who you're just like, he's cute enough.
I think he would be cute if you gave him a haircut. That's how kind of kind of my relationship with him.
Greg Brady's hair towards the end got a little too out of control.
It just always looks super dry and fried.
Yeah. But you know who is the cutest Brady kid is Peter Brady.
Oh, yeah.
He was like so dreamy on the show. And adult Christopher Knight, I have to say.
He can get it.
He hit it. He got it.
He got
Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very first winner of Top Model. And they had a kooky
My Fair
reality
Brady
show, My Fair Brady.
I remember.
Oh, my goodness.
Although he was kind of mean to her. Do you remember when they're on Dr. Phil?
I didn't see it, but
he was kind of mean to her.
I've heard. I don't know. I don't like that, but it is what it is. But so in these movies, Christopher Daniel Barnes is a cute guy.
Yeah,
and he's playing Greg Brady.
And it seems that all of the housewife, and all of the teachers think he's cute.
Yeah,
but all of kind of his contemporaries really don't give a shit about him.
Yes, because all the girls think he's super dorky. Mm-hmm. Because he is. He's square. He's retro, and they're not super into it. But Mrs. Dittmeyer, on the other hand.
Oh, hi, Mrs. Dittmeyer. I'm here to see Eric.
Oh, hi, Greggy. Oh, Greg. I'm so glad you're here. I've got some more of your mail.
Oh.
Oh, gee, your hands are full. Let me.
His pants that he's wearing in this scene are
so
crazy.
Yeah.
You're almost as big as your daddy.
And I'm still growing.
Right before my very eyes. Hands are so tight.
Hey, Mrs. Dittmeyer.
Peter.
Can I mow your lawn? I'm trying to earn some extra money.
Sure. 2 Bradys. Tell you what, when you boys are done, why don't you come inside and help me make a sandwich?
Yeah. In the Very Brady sequel, in the scenes where him and Marcia are seducing each other, and he's like shirtless in the attic.
That silhouette of him changing.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed. I'm telling you, Christopher Daniel Barnes. Who knows what he looks like today? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why he's got a weird picture on IMDb from the 80s. Because he looks crazy. We don't know. We'll find out. That's what Instagram is for. So there's a competition at their school that the grand prize is $20,000.
It's the Search for the Stars. First prize, $20,000.
Search for the Stars.
Which this is straight up, I think, from an episode. Yeah. Is this from an episode?
Probably.
I mean, because we have to have all the Bradys sing and dance, because that was a very big part of the Brady kids, is that they would cart these kids out, even after the show was done, to do, like, the variety show. They recorded numerous albums.
The Very Brady Variety Show is amazing, by the way.
And I feel like the Very Brady Reality Show has made this, like, big comeback recently, too, online. That you always see clips of it on people's Instagram accounts.
I think, well, we just follow particular people who post it a lot.
And we also opened our Oscar show with a song that was on the Brady Bunch Variety Show.
Yes, indeed. The Brady Bunch Variety Hour is kind of amazing. I implore you to look it up on YouTube. But they sing a song called Keep On at the variety show. And it even fades out at the end. Like they're supposed to be singing live, but the song fades out and just fades out. And it's kind of funny when they're doing it live. But I would like to mention that the Search for Stars of Tomorrow talent show, that what kind of talent show is at a local high school and the prize is $20,000?
Right?
First of all.
I know.
But it's hosted by Eric Nies, Eric from The Grind.
You had to remind me what he was from on
Eric
MTV
from
because
The
I had
Grind.
completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and also from the very first season,
Real World New York.
New York. He was the male model who was like hot for Julie. Amazing. And he's just randomly the host, but that's also so 90s
Mm-hmm.
to just cart out Eric Nies. Like, just wave a paycheck in front of him and he's there. And he's wearing like a backwards Kangol hat and like a shirt that's like 8 sizes too big. And yeah, he looks like perplexed when the Bradys leave stage. Like, thanks, Brady's weirdo fuckers. But it's like, well, what do you do? He was like the very first like reality show like celebrity or personality.
He rode the coattails off the Real World for years.
Yeah, he was the first one to like capitalize on the success of like a reality show and just be like, well, now I've got this show and now I've got that show. It's like, all right, Eric from The Grind. You just you host a show where like horny 20-somethings like dance on a beach. Let's take it easy. But they end up winning the variety show or the singing competition to get their $20,000. There were deleted scenes of this movie because when they get to the end,
I think that they deleted 2 of the other Brady kids.
2 of the other Brady kids were they killed?
No,
Cousin Oliver.
Cameos.
Who
was cameos from the Brady Bunch in this movie? I think that the deleted scenes,
Greg and Peter
were the other
only
2
ones.
I think it's Cindy's cameo.
Yeah, Bobby.
And Bobby.
Yeah, but I think
that Cindy was a reporter for the National Tattler, and Bobby was a police officer, I think.
And Marcia and Jan, I just think refused to be in it.
Probably Jan refused to be in it.
And Peter's scene was cut a lot. It was longer. And he's in the movie now, but he only has one line. And I think he had a whole scene later on. But there was a bit, and I think we saw it on Rosie, of Alice like hanging on a wrecking ball, like straight up Miley Cyrus style.
Mm-hmm.
Alice like swinging around.
Like they're going to be wrecking ball.
They're going to
demolish the house as soon as the house is bid on.
Because there's like a weird auction in front of the house. Like there's weird stuff going on in this movie.
I was kind of wondering if that happens on properties that were being sold to the bank or
like
something.
Like foreclosed properties. I mean, they do go up for auction, but I don't know if they're like on the lawn. There's also some really great stuff with Alice and Sam the Butcher.
Yeah.
He's delivering tube steaks.
I like that. I like the neighbors are so shocked that Carol still feeds her children red meat.
Well, that's very 90s.
I know.
Though.
Yeah.
In the 90s, everything was going to kill you. Every food that we ate. I specifically remember being a kid in the 90s and just being like, you can't have eggs. You can't have pork. You can't have meat or beef, you know. It was always something, and you couldn't eat it, and you were going to die. You were going to get everything had carcinogens in it, and was just going to kill you. And red meat was like the worst. Red meat was, I mean, and there she is getting. And the other thing about this movie is that every time they're in the kitchen, Alice is making ungodly amounts of food,
as she did in the show,
using pounds of ground round and lard and just making meatloaf to feed an army. But it's like I can't even imagine having to make dinner for 8 every day.
Yeah,
like what that grocery bill would be. And not only 8, 6 of them being teenagers, 3 of them being boys. A meatloaf for 8 people would be so huge. That's great, but the way that they have Alice like making these meals in the background, just like shoveling Crisco into everything, it's like just this funny little bit of business in the back. that Alice is doing this. And but the stuff with her and Sam the butcher are really funny, and they do often make reference to him delivering meat and dropping off tube steak and all of that to Alice. And though there's also a scene where she is she comes out of her room and she's in a Madonna style bustier with booby tassels, golden booby tassels on this corset.
I mean,
and she
Alice
sneaks back into her room.
Alice just has this thriving sex life.
Yeah, she does
with Sam. I love it.
Butcher. He's a meat packer.
They end up saving the house. Kind of wraps up nicely as any Brady episode does.
Yes.
What I think is kind of clever about this movie is that it sort of dismantles the myth of the perfect American family and has fun with its nostalgia. And it kind of leaves its audience that we can learn a thing or two about the Bradys. That for this kind of cynical world of the 90s, there is something to this family that always looks on the bright side.
Yeah.
That always looks in the best of people. And, yeah, there's something to be learned about that. I think that 2020 can learn something about the Bradys, too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Mike and Carol were just super in love with each other.
Yeah.
This is a blended family, as Miss Cummings mentioned. This is a blended family. The daughters are all Carol's, and the sons are all Mike's from previous relationships.
It's interesting when you watch the first season of the show. It kind of addresses more of the blended family especially with Mike, because I think that with Mike they actually address the wife dying.
Yeah.
With Carol, they just they don't talk about it.
You just have to assume that her husband's dead, because why else would this woman with 3 daughters be getting married
Well,
again?
you find out in the Very Brady sequel who the husband is. We'll talk about that when we do a Very Brady sequel.
Yeah.
But I think that the early seasons do kind of address the blended family and marriage issues, too.
But the thing is, when you watch the show, Carol refers to these boys as her boys. This is just their family.
They call her mom.
They call her mom. They call Mike dad. The girls, and it's just they're all the Bradys, and it's super hopeful. It's naive, but
maybe we need something like that in just sort of our ultra ironic world that we live in.
Yeah.
That everything just sort of, it's not really played as sincere.
Well, even when you get something like Fuller House, even when you watch that, it's written to be so ironic and winking at the camera, and it's this is the Full House reunion show. But it's even the Very Brady Christmas from 1986 or 1987 was still super earnest and super honest, and just
a Very Brady Christmas has some dark shit going on in it too.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one to see how they kind of make these characters a little more real and just roughed up by the real world.
Yes.
What are some of the crazy plot lines from that? So Jan's going through a divorce.
Jan is going through a divorce. She hates her husband, and he hates her.
Marcia's husband was just fired
from the toy company. And and they can't tell the parents. None of them can tell the parents whatever it is that they're going through. So Jan's going through it with the divorce. Marcia's going through it with the deadbeat husband.
Greg is married or dating his boss?
No. Greg is a doctor, and he's married to a doctor. But the thing
that's how it is.
She doesn't want him to go visit his parents because they visited his parents 5 years ago or something. She's we have to visit my family because my family's better.
Married to this awful woman.
Yeah, she's very much we got to go to my house. And then Peter is dating his boss, who's a woman.
Okay, and it was Peter. And then
he's a subordinate to a woman.
And then Bobby is he dropped out of college.
Bobby dropped out of college.
And he races cars.
Yes. And in the spin-off TV series, fully gets paralyzed.
The Brady Brides.
Yeah, or I don't even know if that's the Brady Brides. I think it's just like more Brady's.
Well, because didn't the Brady Brides try to become like 30-something?
They had several spin-off sequels. So all y'all are pissed off about the reboots and the Connors and the new Will and Grace.
Brady Bunch was doing it.
Fuller House and all that shit.
Was doing it like 35 years ago.
Oh, bitch. That was a new Leave It to Beaver. I don't want to tell you how many Lucys there were. There was a Lucy spinoff in the 80s.
With Jenny Lewis?
With a young Miss Jenny Lewis, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, so this whole spinoff reunion thing is not new to Netflix. It's been going on forever, and the Bradys were no stranger to it because there was the Brady Brides. The Very Brady Christmas was a special, but then that turned into the Bradys, which was this 30-something-esque dramedy, which was more drama than comedy because Bobby was paralyzed. But it didn't last. Got canceled.
Yeah, I feel like whenever sort of the residual checks dried up, they started to take something different.
Yeah.
And they probably liked the HGTV show because it was something a little different.
Yeah.
Like they were kind of they had an end game of to remodel the house. So
Yes.
it gave them a little something to do than to just reminisce about getting your nose broken by like the football.
I mean,
or
even,
just reciting lines.
Even though they meant they did it,
but
every
they
chance
they did
got.
that a lot on that.
But that started off with the Variety Hour, and the Brady Bunch spinoffs were notorious for somebody not coming back.
On the Brady Bunch Variety Hour, it was fake Jan.
It was fake Jan. In Very Brady Christmas, it was fake Cindy. I think they all were back for the Brady Brides pilot, but then Marcia, dropped out for the Bradys. So the HGTV series was a rare instance of all of the Brady kids coming together for something. It was very nice to see. I'll have you know. I enjoyed it.
We should probably talk a little about Robert Reed, too.
Oh, yes.
Robert Reed has kind of a sad career because I think that Robert Reed, when he first started, I think probably thought he would go on to stage work, and he just ended up taking Mike Brady. And you know who was offered Mike Brady before Robert Reed took it was Gene Hackman.
Yes.
And Gene Hackman's career would have turned out very, very differently if he ended up on the Brady Bunch.
Indeed.
But yeah, just this. I don't know if Robert Reed was necessarily in the closet. He just didn't talk about it.
Oh, he was in the closet. He was deep in the closet.
But I mean, but he just didn't really talk about it at all with Florence, and of course not with any of the kids.
Yeah.
But he became pretty close with all of the kids. Like he did sort of look at them as kind of his surrogate children.
Yes, and he notoriously did not care for the material that they were producing on the Brady Bunch.
And as the seasons go on, you can sort of see Robert Reed just getting more checked out as the seasons go on.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And then in the last season, it's interesting to go back and revisit the last season because they always write Mike out of the last act of the show somehow.
Yeah.
Like he's there at the beginning and then he'll just go away. And then I want to say in like the last handful of episodes, he's not even in them.
He's not even in them because he would pull some diva shit when they would attempt to record these episodes.
Yeah, and I know that he was somebody that kind of expected a little more of the scripts.
Yeah.
That can we sort of reel this into something that families would actually like talk about?
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of more realistic dialogue. I know that was a big issue with him, too.
Yeah. So he would pull some stunts like refusing to come out of his trailer or just not even showing up. So, yeah, they would write him out of half the episodes and then like literally half of the episode, and then towards the end of the season, they just started writing him out altogether. And he's not even in the final episode because there was no farewell show because they were abruptly canceled, and they didn't get a final episode. It was just the last one that they shot, and he wasn't in it.
So Robert Reed lived in Pasadena where we live.
Yes, he did.
And I think, were you saying that it's like an E! True Hollywood Story or something?
Yes.
Something around those lines where they go to encounters in Pasadena?
Yes, indeed. Encounters in Pasadena was a wonderful gay bar that was, at the time, there were, I think 3 gay bars in Pasadena.
Did Encounters close probably around, 05?
I want to say it probably closed, anywhere between 05 and
before my time.
Yeah, before you were here. It's the first gay bar I ever went to. That's for sure. Delta Work has a really good story about RuPaul showing up.
Work the lights at Encounters for him.
Showing up to Encounters to see the drag show and seeing that there was no spotlight. And Delta saying, well, there's no one here to work the spotlight. So Ru said, well, I'll work it for you because you always need a spotlight when you're on stage. I never saw any drag shows there, but I did have some fun evenings at Encounters, and apparently it was Robert Reed's local hangout.
Could you imagine going into Encounters in the mid 80s or something and just seeing Mike Brady at the bar?
Yeah,
just drinking his whiskey on the rocks or something.
Queen, yeah, he would be having a White Russian, something weird, gross. Yeah, just old Queen sitting at the bar, lots of turquoise jewelry and wrist cuffs and weird. I feel like he would be just decked out, and just kind of bitchy.
Just don't mention the Brady Bunch to him.
Oh sure, yeah. Probably smoking on the patio, just holding court. I could see it. But yeah, Encounters is no longer there. It's now a Farmers Insurance. They tore down the building and raised it and built something from scratch where it once stood. But in this E! True Hollywood Story, they are there. We are here at local.
We're at Encounters on a Friday afternoon.
Oh, it's
5 p.m.
It's a Tuesday afternoon. There's nobody in there. It is completely empty. And it's Mark Steinus or something. It's just here I am, at Encounters. What are you doing there? It's so weird. And I remember watching it on TV and just being my jaw just hitting the floor. Oh my God, this is too much. I can't believe they went to fucking Encounters. But hey, it's immortalized. Should be immortalized because it's Mike Brady's favorite local dive bar.
Early seasons Mike Brady, I think, is so handsome too.
Yeah, I mean, even later seasons, that weird perm just did him no favors, but he was a very handsome man. Just striking blue eyes and dark hair, super tall, deep voice.
It's kind of who have they just done in Hollywood? It's like if Rock Hudson's career would have gone a very different direction.
Sure.
If just Rock Hudson just would have not really done movies and just ended up doing this family network show.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. Interesting time for sitcoms and, all of that. But, the Brady Bunch is a phenomenon. It is.
It forever lives on, too.
It's never going to go away. But it was it spanned more than just it was a sitcom in the 70s. It was way more than that with all the spin-offs and now these movies. It was an animated show. There's really cool lunch boxes and just all this material, merchandise.
If you want to see a really funny YouTube clip, look up Eve Plum on Rosie O'Donnell. And Rosie is showing her all of her Brady memorabilia. And you can tell Eve Plum just does not give a shit. I love a good interview with Eve Plum where she is just having none of people fanning out about the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely has that middle child kind of sense of I can't even with this family. I'm stuck with this family for the rest of my life. And,
And also, we should mention that Eve Plum had probably the most successful movie career of all of them. She did a handful of really successful TV movies, including Dawn, Portrait of a Teenage Centerfold. No.
Runaway.
Portrait of a Teenage Runaway.
Yeah.
And I think that she did a few more, too.
Yeah, she was also in the Super Fudge TV show.
Maureen McCormick notoriously bombed her Raiders of the Lost Ark interview because she was, I think, high when she went into it.
Oh.
So we could have had Maureen McCormick as Marion Ravenwood in Raiders.
I don't know if Spielberg would have went in that direction.
So she says that she read for it.
Yeah, she could have read for it. I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that she had a chance of getting it.
Yep.
Because I feel like Spielberg would have just been too cool to be like, I'm not having Marcia Brady in my movie. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it would have. Yeah, they put her in there as a favor. That's my take on Steve.
I like to think of the movie that could have been.
I mean, it would have
with
been
Maureen
cool.
McCormick.
Could have been
as Marion.
Could have been cool. But those are my thoughts on Steven Spielberg and what a cunty guy he probably is. But the Brady kids did not go on to greater things as far as acting. But that often happens with child actors.
Well, do you remember a few years ago when Eve Plum sold her Malibu house? She bought a house off the coast when she was making the Brady Bunch.
Yeah,
she sold it.
She was like 15.
She sold it like 3 years ago for like millions and millions of dollars too. So I think that some of them did invest that.
Yeah,
and it would be smart to invest it in Los Angeles real estate in the 70s.
Well. Yeah, I feel like that was just like a lucky thing on her part. But hey, yeah, she's probably rolling in it now. Good for her. But there's so much like lore and history, and you can tell that we're deep into like the Brady Bunch minutia when it comes to it because we're just fascinated with the show. But the movie really is kind of a really fun snapshot of what everything the show is, you know, and it's a good intro to the show if you're not super familiar with it. You don't have to be. You can just watch the movie and it's still funny. Like all you have to know is that they're just like a super square, corny family from the 70s, and now they're just dropped in the 90s. And you can watch the movie and it's still funny, and there's like cute boys in it and like weird, like subversive gay shit, subversive, like straight, sexy stuff like going on. Like I think Betty Thomas just really had an idea to make this kind of like a very edgy, piece, a very like edgy and like cool. Like,
and it says something that she was a smart director, that she could comment on the 90s while they were still in it.
Yeah.
And when you go back and you revisit it 25 years later, it really reads as like a commentary just as much as the 90s as it was on the 70s Brady Bunch.
Yeah. When they go to the school dance, there is a metal detector. There's a sign that says like no weapons allowed. The decorations are the balloons are condoms that are blown up. And it's like no school would have condoms decorating the dance, but it's just one of those things that this is the world we live in, and schools have to have metal detectors.
These ideas that these students just rule the school.
Yeah, yeah. So these are all ideas that were just kind of coming to the forefront, in the 90s of like what a crazy world. Like, I mean, now it's like even like 100 times crazier than that, but at the time it was the first time that we were seeing that in our schools and stuff, and that's in there. So it's like, yeah, it's definitely this heightened version of what was going on in the 90s. And I think because we're dealing with a property from the 70s, you have to comment on what's going on in the present of that time frame. So yeah, it's and it's just really funny.
Yeah.
It's just really funny.
You can tell that it's written by SNL writers.
Yeah, like I said, it's very SNL adjacent with Michael McKean and Betty Thomas and people coming from Second City and all that. All those people work together, especially in the 90s. It feels like an SNL movie. So, do we leave anything out?
I don't think so. I think we got it.
I think so. Definitely recommend watching this movie. It's
a movie that goes on and off demand a lot on Netflix and Hulu.
Yeah, that's true.
If it's not there, check back in a month and it'll probably be there.
Probably be there, yeah. And the sequel is just as good. And if the sequel's on, just watch that. You don't have to watch this one to get what's going on in the sequel.
And what's fun about the sequel is that the sequel really works as its own standalone episode.
Yeah. And that's the thing about the Brady Bunch. There's so much material that they were able to make a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have anything to do with the first movie.
And it's crazy that they didn't even write in George Glass in
the first movie. Yeah.
Jan's imaginary boyfriend, George Glass.
Yeah. And there's no Cousin Oliver in either of the movies. He was so bad that he got left out of both movies.
We don't like to talk about Cousin Oliver.
We like to talk about that.
There's a cute little callback to Tiger, the dog.
Yes. Tiger.
Tiger.
What happened to that dog?
Tiger famously just disappeared as the show went on.
He's there. They just don't talk about him. There's not enough time. But yeah, definitely recommend going out and seeing this movie. It's super funny. And try and find the Brady Bunch if you can.
It's on CBS All Access.
It is on CBS All Access. If you like Star Trek and you have CBS All Access, then you've got the Brady Bunch. So, I'd say come over our place and watch it with us, but hey, social distancing. Maybe we'll watch it on Zoom or something.
Could you imagine?
We'll have Brady Bunch Film Festival on Zoom. I love it. We'll get that started in a couple weeks. But in the meantime, go watch the Brady Bunch movie because we love it. Final thoughts? Scott, what do you got?
Well, you can follow us on Movies That Made Us Gay.
Yes,
MTMUG Pod.
MTMUG Pod at MTMUG Pod on Twitter, at Movies That Made Us Gay on Facebook and Instagram. Find us on social media and anywhere podcasts are found. You can listen to us, but on iTunes, if you're listening to us there, subscribe, like, and give us 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars.
Give us 5 stars. If you don't like us, don't write a review. But if you love us, write us a good one. Until next week, we come back with a fresh new episode. We'll see you soon. Stay safe. Stay home. Don't go outside. Bye.
Bye.